Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy Kevin Forte, and today we're going over the projected number one overall pick coming up here in the 2023 NHL Draft. So be prepared because we're going to be talking a lot about next year's draft here over the next couple of months. And there was an interesting little tidbit here before we get into the new year on Connor Bedard and potentially the idea of him maybe pulling off a Lindros. And if you guys don't know what I'm talking about, there's a little context behind that. Basically, for the background of this, it's basically the event that Connor Bedard wants to sign with a certain team and get drafted by a certain team. So I don't know if this, again, it depends on who ends up getting that first overall pick. And I'm sure that has something to do with it at the end of the day. But there's been some suspicion that Connor Bedard could potentially force a trade to his hometown team. Now, this is kind of an interesting report, and it comes from hockeyfeed.com. So take with that what you will. They do release some clickbaity videos or some clickbaity articles, but it's a topic that I think is worth mentioning, especially with how good Connor Bedard has been here in the World Junior Championships. It's kind of created more of that aura around him, and with his name kind of out there, a little bit more of a popular name now going into next year, kind of raises the question. So he remains the hottest name going into next year's draft conversation, as most of you guys know, and is likely going to be the first overall pick at next year's NHL draft. But with that said, he has been trending along with another famous name in the NHL, and that's Eric Lindros. Throughout this season, fans are wondering if Connor Bedard could potentially pull off an Eric Lindros. Now, the reason for that is, Bedard was trending on social media, apparently, and was on Reddit, where fans debated on whether the projected first overall could potentially pull a Lindros. I've been drinking a little bit, so apologies. Did the NHL implement sanctions for pulling a Lindros? Hypothetically, could Bedard say he doesn't want to play for anyone but Vancouver? And considering he's from northern Vancouver, that is kind of a question. And from Twitter, the king of Blind Bay, at I'm Real Goody, and that is the tweet that everyone has kind of just gone off and just kind of said, all right, what could happen here? Now, if you look at Connor Bedard, he is a baby. So he is 17 years old, born in July of 2005 from northern Vancouver, BC. He's currently played 3 seasons in the Western Hockey League in the WHL with the Regina Pats, and his numbers have been quite impressive. His first season, he put up almost 2 points per game. In 15 games, he had 28 points in his first 15 games. He was almost a point per game that first year. In his first full season, which was last year, he put up 100 points. Yes, that's right, 100 points in 62 games with the Regina Pats. And then, of course, going into this season, he's already got 64 points in 28 games. So he has been phenomenal this season. Not to mention this year already, in the World Junior Championships, through only a pair of games, he already has 4 goals and 4 assists for 8 points through only 2 games so far in the World Junior Championships here for 2023. So to say the least, this guy is a pretty good hockey player and is going to be the first overall pick, barring some crazy things happening here before the draft. Connor Bedard is the next generational talent, and if you want to look back to kind of what happened, so we're going to go back to Eric Lindros, he was eligible to re-enter the draft in 1993 as the Quebec Nordiques had the first overall pick. So the Nordiques, not wanting to lose such an impactful player for nothing, and didn't want to waste their first overall pick, traded the power forward in the 1992 NHL draft to the Flyers for Peter Forsberg, Mike Rickey, Ron Hextall, Steve Duchesne, Kerry Huffman, and future considerations, which eventually became Chris Simon and 2 first-round picks. Oh yeah, and just as a sweetener, they also added $15 million. If that seems like a lot to give up for a teenager who'd never step onto the NHL ice, it's because it was. Let's take a look at one of the biggest, most influential trades of the 90s. Lindros almost landed elsewhere. He almost ended up going to the Colorado Avalanche. The New York Rangers had some interest in a big deal before the Flyers pulled out the ultimate package. The Flyers weren't the only team. The Rangers were a big player there. And apparently the offer from the Rangers would have been Sergei Nemshinov, Tony Amont, Alexei Kovalev, who I know his name quite dearly, James Patrick, and either John Van Beesbrook or Mike Richter, multiple first-round picks, and $20 million, which is a pretty big package. So you just kind of look at the amount of hype that would have been around that deal. And you look at, obviously, that would be a kind of tough package for the Canucks to give up because the Canucks would have to probably give up Elias Pettersson in that deal. And I don't think that's something they'd be willing to do. And to be quite honest, I don't think it makes sense for them to do that. But at the very least, it's fun to at least consider what could be. And if you're looking at a package, you're probably looking at the next 2 years of first-round picks, Quinn Hughes, Thatcher Demko, and again, you're probably looking at one of those really good forwards up front, whether it's a Podkolzin or, if it gets to that point, a Elias Pettersson. It could be very expensive. But again, I want you guys to leave some mock trades for what the potential price could be for a Connor Bedard. And I'm going to assume you're going to have to look at the Anaheim Ducks, the Arizona Coyotes, and the Chicago Blackhawks as 3 teams that I would legitimately put as teams that could get Connor Bedard. Or do we see the reverse of the Flyers? Do the Flyers end up getting that first pick, and instead of being the team on the receiving end of that first overall pick, are they the team that ends up trading that first overall pick for that package from Vancouver? I think that would be kind of interesting. So let me know what you guys think down below. Do you guys think there's any possibility that the Vancouver Canucks could somehow force a trade of Connor Bedard to his home in Vancouver? Or do you think he ends up just going to Arizona, Chicago, wherever he ends up going? Let me know your guys' thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again next time.